Can I get a sense of the layout in the tent? Sleeping Regan, which way is his head?
Facing that way.
Well, actually, his head was here, and we actually had suitcases or something in there, and then Azaria's carry basket there.
You tell me if this gets too much. Which end was Azaria's head?
Here.
Okay.
This is top.
It was early Sunday evening and Lindy had just put Azaria down for the night. Regan was already asleep, but Aidan was still hungry, so they went back to the barbecue.
So where you are, that's the barbecue enclosure area?
Yeah.
How far away were you when you saw the dingo come out?
There.
But the bushes...
But by then, within that to that, I'd gone from walking to a sprint. So it wasn't until I was at an angle where I could see over the top that I could see in and see Regan and see that the tent had been trashed and all her blankets. Scattered. So of course I dived in and started searching under the blankets, and my hands were occupied, so I used my foot to poke him.
To give Regan a poke?
To make sure he was all right.
Do you need a hug?
And he played dead because he thought I'd come back to get him.
God, no, please, God, help. The dingo's got my baby!
When you were sort of here, coming back to the tent, where was Aidan?
Behind me. In fact, I didn't even know he was there at stage. And I don't know whether he can talk about it or not. And maybe later he can. I can see he's upset now. But I know he was standing behind the tent when Judy West...
Shone her to our chin.
She came and asked him if it was true that the dingo had taken her. And he just turned around and told her the dingo had his baby in its stomach.
Look, if you want to take a break, we can do that.
Does it make it any easier? No.
It seemed that everything that happened over the next several years came down to those few minutes when you and Aidan took Azaria back to the tent to put her to bed for the night, and Aidan wanted something else to eat.
Yeah.
It was as simple as that. Have you played that over in your mind many times over the years?
I can just shut my eyes and see it like a movie. But I mean, if he hadn't wanted something to eat, he'd be in the tent too and awake. And they say if you say something and give the dingoes a fright, they can attack. I could have lost 3 children that night. It could have been worse.
For the Chamberlains, the nightmare was only just beginning.
I just yelled. There wasn't time to go and tell people. I just yelled out, has anyone got a torch? The dingo's got my baby.
Late yesterday and last night.
In those early days, everyone agreed. Wild dingoes were shot and dissected, and the police were at pains to show what they too believed had happened.
The dog was seen to run, as you can see to the back there, over the sandhill, and several people chased it.
A week later, with no sign of Azaria, the search was about to be scaled back. Then an extraordinary discovery.
So, Margot, what did you think you saw? What did you say to Wally?
It was totally out of keeping with the natural environment, this white something.
It was late afternoon, and the Goodwin family from Melbourne was exploring Uluru.
And he just straight away could recognise it was a grey suit.
Baby's jumpsuit,
we knew.
which we knew they were looking for.
The jumpsuit is this article here.
On the night she disappeared, Azaria was wearing a matinee jacket with a jumpsuit underneath. Wally and Margot had found the jumpsuit. It was more than 4 kilometres away from the campsite.
When you see the blood and the amount of dried blood around the top of the jumpsuit and that, you just think of the trauma that the baby must have gone through.
The first policeman on the scene was Frank Morris.
He startled me by bending straight over and picking the clothing up, and then he looked at me and saw the startled look on my face and said, "Oh, I've got to positively identify it as being Azaria Chamberlain's." And I'm thinking, well, how many blood-stained jumpsuits do you find around Ayers Rock? And
this became a critical part of the prosecution's case. It argued that dingoes couldn't leave the clothes as shown in Sergeant Morris's forensic photos. Therefore, it had to be a human.
And then I was asked to show the court the way the clothing was found. And I said, well, none of these show the way the clothing was found. Constable Morris picked them up. And unbeknownst to me, that he had denied picking up the clothing.
6 months later, the first coronial inquiry ruled that a dingo had taken Azaria, but there had been human intervention in disposing of her body.
I was told if I said I was guilty, I could go home.
Were you ever tempted to accept that deal just to make it go away?
No, why should my family, knowing I'm innocent, live with the fact that everybody says your mother's a murderer? I wouldn't do that to my family.
The prosecution produced expert witnesses who testified that Azaria's blood was found in the family car and that her throat had been cut by a human, evidence that was later discredited. Michael Chamberlain has no doubt what was driving.
I think we were seen to be the patsies. Get them, you know.
Why do you think you were pursued so relentlessly by the police, the prosecution, government for so long?
There were 4 hotels out there, and money had been loaned to the Northern Territory government. And I think that something was said to them, you've got to fix this mess up because it might affect tourism. You've got to get a conviction, because you can't have dingoes running around killing kids, or the fear of that happening. Dispel it. Get rid of it.
The media room has erupted as journalists rush for the phones and radio links to tell the world of this decision.
Lindy Chamberlain was eventually convicted of murder and given a life sentence. Just over 3 years later, but only about 150 metres away from where her jumpsuit was found, Azaria's matinee jacket was discovered. Within a week, Lindy was released from jail. The convictions against her and Michael were overturned after an extensive royal commission.
Do you ever wonder what your life would be like today if Azaria had not been taken that night?
I wonder sometimes what my life with her would have been like. But life in general, no, I tend to, as much as possible, take off the rear view mirrors and the front.
And the latest and hopefully final inquest into the death of Azaria Chamberlain begins this Friday. We'd like your thoughts on this extraordinary story, so we're running a Facebook poll asking the question, does Lindy Chamberlain Creighton deserve an apology? We'll bring you the results tomorrow night.